Welcome to the Rational Egoist. I'm your host, Michael Liebowitz, and with us today to do a review of the great movie Tombstone is the professor, the author, the radical for capitalist, the one and only Andy Bernstein. Although he's gone back to Andrew now, I can't keep up with it. Andy, welcome back.
Always good to be here, Michael. But Andy's for my friends. Andrew is the name that I use for my students and as professionally and everything.
So what are we doing here? Do I call you Andrew or Andy? What do you want to roll with?
Well, I mean, you and I aren't just colleagues. We're brothers. We're brothers. So you could call me Andy.
All right, Andy. So let's just dive right in, man. Let's get talking about Tombstone. Break it down for us.
I just got to emote for him. I mean, I love this movie. I'm a hero worshiper, and the heroes here. Kurt Russell as Wyatt Earp is terrific. Val Kilmer as Doc Holliday is epic. I mean, he's become like a cult following for his performance, bravura performance in this film. So it's very heroic. It's the retelling of the gunfight, the OK Corral story that's been told many times in Hollywood. This is the best. I don't think it's the most historically accurate, but it's historical fiction. So they have poetic license. Anyhow, Wyatt Earp has this history of being a lawman in Dodge City, Kansas. He was he cleaned up the town. He was really tough guy, but he's sick of that life, and he killed a guy who presumably deserved it. But he's sick of that life. He comes out to Arizona, hooks up with his buddies, Virgil and Morgan Earp,
his brothers.
I'm sorry. Yeah, his brothers, his literal biological brothers, Morgan and Virgil Earp. And they meet in Tucson. They go down to Tombstone, which is a wide open town, and they're gonna start a casino, and they're gonna make money. They're going into business. And Doc Holliday is there. Doc Holliday's a dentist, a gunfighter, brilliant gambler, and he's dying of tuberculosis or consumption, as was known back then.
It's a lunger.
Yeah, he's a lunger. 1879, there was no treatment for tuberculosis. And the great scene before they hook up with the bad guys, with the cowboys, as they're known. Great scene in the casino where this loudmouth punk has set up shop there, and he's chased out all the honest trade. And Wyatt Earp says to the owner, something like, "If I get this guy out of here, what does he ask for? 25% of the profit or something?" And
he does it actually after. It's even better because he asked him. He said, "Well, this is a really nice place. Why is there nobody in here?" And the guy tells him, "Well, we got this loudmouth over here. He's bullying all the customers. Now no one wants to come in."
Right. And Wyatt Earp saunters over. He literally saunters over there. He's not armed, and he says to the blowhard, the guy yells at him, "You want something?" He's yelling at everything, and Wyatt Earp says very calmly, "Just wanted to tell you you're in my seat." And the blowhard says, "Oh, is that a fact?" And Wyatt Earp says very calmly, "Yeah, that's a fact." Anyways, the conversation goes on for a while, and eventually the guy's armed, Johnny Tyler, right? The guy's name was Johnny Tyler. He's armed, but Wyatt Earp just has the thing that's so impressive in this scene, Michael, and I think that sets the stage for the rest of the film, is how impressive Wyatt Earp is as a man.
Andy, I would go back even to an earlier scene that's kind of a portent to the kind of person that he is with his courage. When they're first getting ready to head off to Tombstone, there's a guy, and the guy's hitting his horse in the face with a leather belt or something. And Wyatt Earp goes over and he takes it from him and he hits him with it, and he tells him, "Hurts, don't it?" And he tells him, "Now leave that stud." And the guy just does it because he sees that this is not a guy to be toyed with.
Yes. There are some people that they just have a presence. You can call it what you will, charisma or the it factor or a presence. And Wyatt Earp, the eyes, the posture, he's tall, lean, fit guy. He's tough as hell. Not a bad guy. He's not a bully, but he's a hard rock. And he just has this press. Yeah, he does. He exudes it.
As an aside,
presence.
Let me tell you a quick story as an aside for this type of person. Although the guy, wasn't heroic, but it demonstrates what the effect of a person that doesn't fear you and doesn't fear anybody has on people. There was a guy that I knew when I was incarcerated, and there were a group of guys wanted to jump him, and they were all gathered around talking to each other. And he walked over to him and he said, "Listen, if you guys are going to jump me, just know one thing. They may move me out of this block, but I will get back here and I will get each and every one of you." And they left him alone because it's the same dynamic. You're looking at somebody whom you simply cannot bully. And that's what Johnny Tyler finds out with Wyatt Earp. This is somebody your tactics simply are not going to work with.
Yeah, no bluster is going to have any impact on Wyatt Earp. You reminded me of the way they portrayed Jack Reacher today, in the TV
I've never seen it. Now you got another movie I got to see, I guess.
Well, it's a TV series, but Tom Cruise did make, several movies. In fact, I think they have a third one coming out with Tom Cruise sometime this year, I think. But I like Jack Reacher, the character in the books. He's a tough guy, but it's always justice. It's always, protecting the innocent against the really bad guys. And Wyatt Earp, Jack Reacher has that kind of presence. Wyatt Earp definitely has it. And you see it. And he, the guy won't even pull a gun. And I love the language. He's go ahead. He goes. Wyatt Earp says to him, "What does he say? Jerk that pistol and go to work." Boy. Yeah.
He told him, "Skin that smoke wagon."
Yeah,
skin that.
Skin that. Yeah.
He says, "I said throw down, boy."
Yeah, he slaps him. You gonna do something, or you just gonna stand there and bleed? Yeah. Finally, takes him by the ear. You can see poor Johnny's face. Out you go, Junior.
Yes. Now that, Andy, is when he looks at the owner and says, "What do you think, Merle? 25%? Sound about right?"
Yeah. It's a good thing you've seen the movie 100 times, Michael, because you can do the entire dialogue. But you see what kind of guy Wyatt Earp is. And so the Cowboys is this gang of really, they're murderers. They're cold-blooded killers. And the first scene, going back to the beginning of the film, really, shows that. Because they ride into this Mexican village. There's a wedding going on of Mexican police officers, and the Mexican cops had killed a couple of the members of the Cowboys, and they come in and they just kill everybody, kill, all the cops, even kill a priest, who told them that vengeance is mine, saith the Lord. They're gonna get theirs. And they shoot. Johnny Ringo shoots the priest and murders him. So right away these are really bad guys.
Yeah. Now, importantly, right, the priest is talking Spanish to them, right? And he says something, and their Spanish member of the Cowboys, the head of the Cowboys, Curly Bill Brocious, asked him to interpret what the guy said. And he says something crazy about a horse that's going to come for him and something. And Johnny Ringo says, "That's not what he said, you ignorant wretch. Your Spanish is worse than your English." And then they asked Johnny Ringo, what did he actually say? And he quotes from the Bible, "Behold the pale horse, for he who rode on him is death, and hell followed with him." But they indicate early on that Johnny Ringo is not only a cold-blooded killer because he shoots and kills the priest, but he's also a very educated person.
Yes. And there's foreshadowing here of what's going to happen to the Cowboys.
Yes.
That hell's coming with me. Wyatt Earp says, "I'm riding after you, and hell's coming with me." Fulfilling the prophecy from the Bible that's quoted at the start. Anyhow, so back to the beginning. They're in Tombstone. Curly Bill's in an opium den or something. He's all smoked up. He comes out. He shoots the.
Well, hold on. You got to introduce Doc Holliday.
Oh yeah, okay, yeah, Doc Holliday,
because that's a great scene.
The one
when they meet him on the street.
Yeah, Johnny Tyler comes up with the
shotgun.
He
comes back. Yeah.
Doc Holliday, they don't know Doc Holliday's there, and he's an old friend of Wyatt's, presumably from back in Dodge, where Doc's an expert gunman, and I think part of the backstory that they don't show, but I think part of the backstory is he's always backed Wyatt Earp up. And in fact, when he's dying at the end, Wyatt says, thanks him for always being there, he says.
Yeah, so when they're talking, right, this is a great scene. Johnny Tyler comes with a shotgun, clearly aiming for revenge. He just got bitch slapped, in the saloon there with the casino. And they're not yet talking to Doc Holliday. They're just standing on the street. And then Doc Holliday with that great accent, "Why, Johnny Ringo, madcap, where you going with that shotgun?" And then he says,
Johnny Tyler, you mean?
Johnny Tyler, I'm sorry. Yeah. And he says, Doc? And then Wyatt looks at Doc because now he sees him. He says, how the hell are you? And he says, Wyatt, I am rolling. And now Johnny Tyler realizes whom he was going to get into this fight with.
Yeah.
And they make him throw down the shotgun and tell him to beat him.
Doc says, Johnny, I forgot you were there. You can go now. Like he was the king or something. Gives people permission to come and go. Yeah, he's arrogant. But very smooth and cocky. He's just like the epitome. Val Kilmer as Doc Holliday, he's like the epitome of cool. Oh, I mean, if you looked up the adjective "cool" in the dictionary, there'd be a picture of Val Kilmer as Doc Holliday. I mean, he just epitomizes it. And whether he's playing cards or whatever. There's the one scene with Ed Bailey, where he's always winning. I don't know if he was cheating. I don't think he was cheating.
They never really tell us if he was cheating or if he was just good.
My guess is that he was just that good.
I think so, because he tells Wyatt, he says, poker is an honest living.
Yeah, right. And there is an art to it. If you watch the World Championships of poker, there are only certain people good enough to make it to that level. A lot of people play poker, but not at that level. It's like chess. There's a lot of bluffing that goes on, a lot of mental gymnastics with the opponent, and they're getting inside the opponent's head, and everything. Anyway, he's an expert poker player, and he's always winning. And Ed Bailey has, one early in the movie, what does he call him? A cheap lunger or something. He's
nothing but a skinny lunger. Without them, he said, them guns don't scare me, Holiday.
Yeah, and he goes for something. I don't know if he's going for a pistol or what. And
Wyatt, he goes to lean over, and Doc pulls the guns out. Looks like
he's reaching for something. I don't know if he's reaching for a gun, but Doc is so quick, like in a heartbeat. The two guns are out.
Yeah,
Ed Bailey backs up and he just swings them on his hand, puts them down, and he says, "Oh, we can be. Aren't we friends?" Ed, with like something like it would really break my heart. We're not friends. He's mocking him, but it's all verbal. He put the guns down. He's not going to shoot him. And Ed goes for him. He makes the mistake of going for him physically, to beat him up.
He went for the guns. He actually reached for the guns.
Is that what it was?
Yeah, and then Doc gets up and stabs him.
Yeah, Doc stabs him and kills him. Presumably in self-defense, because if he's going for Holliday's guns, the purpose is to shoot him. Presumably.
But what was relayed there is they just demonstrate that scene, the speed of Doc Holliday when it comes
and the lethality.
Yeah,
that you don't. What's the expression? FAFO.
Fuck around and find out.
Yeah, this is the guy, and his reputation precedes him. So you should know you don't mess around with this guy, because if you do, you will find out.
So when the stage really gets set, though, right? When I think it's the first time we see Wyatt and he's dealing faro in the in the saloon in which he kicked out Ringo, and Doc's next to him.
Tyler.
He kicks out Tyler. I keep saying Ringo, yeah. But now the Cowboys come in. They come in, and what happens when they come in?
It's a great scene.
This is like one of the best movie scenes. There's so many in this movie.
Yeah, it is. And this is a real testosterone-driven movie. I mean, these are all these hard rocks, on both sides. This is a real man's movie. Although I've known a lot of women who appreciate it because it's a great story, But and there is a love story there too. But yeah, so Curly Bill Brocious, the head of the Cowboys, played by Powers Booth, right? Is very good. Johnny Ringo, what's his name? Ike Clanton, who's a bullying, blustering, blowhard coward.
Yeah, and such a dick.
Yeah, he is big mouth. But they come in, and Wyatt's dealing cards and everything, and and they get to talking, and Wyatt Earp, I heard of you and everything. You're loyal, man. And Wyatt very calmly goes, "I'm retired." And I Clint says, "That's good, Lord Dog, because Lord just don't go around here."
Yeah,
and then 5 seconds later, he says to him, he's yelling, he's like, "Lord just don't go around here." And Wyatt says very calmly, "I heard you the first time." And he's winner to whatever it is, and he's very calm, and and you get this confrontation, first confrontation between Doc Holliday and Johnny Ringo, and you know something's going to happen, like later on in the movie. There's a great quote from the writer, Michael Anton Chekhov, playwright, short story writer. Chekhov said, "You don't hang a gun on the wall in scene 1 unless you intend to have it go off in scene 5. I'm sorry, in act 1, unless you intend to have it go off in act 5. Well, in a well-made movie, you don't have this confrontation between these two gunfighters unless you know at the end there's going to be some, climactic confrontation between them. And Johnny Ringo's got the reputation; he's a real gunman. Doc Holliday has the same reputation, and they're both really fast. And anyway, so they're talking and they're quoting. They're both really educated guys. Doc's a dentist. Ringo, at least in the movie version, is a very educated guy. They're talking.
What's the first thing he says to Doc, though? Because Doc's hammered, right? Like, he's so drunk, and he's got his glass in his hand. He's taking shots,
and he's sweating. He's always sweating because he's so sick, And
bloodshot eyes.
Yeah, Wyatt said, "I'm retired," and you must be Doc Holliday. And Doc says, "That's the rumor." And you retired too? And Doc says, "Not me. I'm in my prime." And Johnny Ringo said, "Yeah, you look it, skinny, longer, sweating all the time because he's sick. He probably got fever and everything." Anyway, he says to his girlfriend, Doc says to his girlfriend, Big Nose Kate, I think I hate him.
He says, "That's Johnny Ringo."
Yeah, Johnny Ringo.
That's Johnny Ringo. Deadliest pistolier since Wild Bill, they say.
Yeah, right.
Should I hate him?
Kate says, "You don't even know him." And Doc says, "I think I hate him. He reminds me of me. Yeah, definitely. I hate him." And Ringo is listening to this. He's obviously not happy about it. Pulls a gun, and he starts showing how great he is. Was going swinging around his finger, and he's forward, backward, and everything. Swinging, go bam, back in his pocket. You see how quick his hands are. And ooh. Doc, meanwhile, has a cup. He's drinking out of, very calm. He
doesn't even flinch. Doesn't even flinch with this gun in his face and everything else.
Yeah, he's gonna die soon anyway. He's got nothing. He's got nothing to lose. Finishes his drink and he takes the cup and he twirls it on his finger, back and forth. And obviously mocking Ringo did it with the gun. He's doing it with the cup. And he takes the cup and puts it, by his side. Yeah, everybody applauds. Even Curly Bill laughs, and it kind of lightens the mood. I don't think Ringo's happy, but it lightens the mood. And there's no violence.
No,
not yet. Not yet.
And when they're having the conversation, Wyatt, when Doc says I should hate him, Wyatt says he's drunk. Doc is drunk, and Doc says in vino veritas. In wine.
That's when the Latin. Right,
and wine there is truth. And Johnny then responds in Latin, and they have this discussion going back and forth. And that's when Doc says, "That's Latin, dear." He says to Kate, "Evidently, Mr. Ringo is an educated man. Now I really hate him."
Yeah, right. And as the tension builds, we see that Wyatt's got a pistol under the table, just in case the Cowboys get frisky. Wyatt's gonna blast. He's got the drop. They don't know it, but he's got the drop on both Curly Bill and Johnny Ringo.
Right now, in the meantime, right?
They don't get frisky yet.
Not yet. There's sort of a back story going on, or a side story there's this theater group is coming through town. They're performing Faust. And there's just a beautiful, beautiful woman played by Dana Delaney. And right away, Wyatt, who's married, but his wife is an opium addict. And you could tell they're not really copacetic, but she catches Wyatt.
It's a common law relationship also.
Yeah, he and Kate, what's her name?
Josephine Marcus.
Yeah. It's obvious they have an attraction from the get-go. And we just have to keep that in mind because that's building on the side. Throughout their main story.
There's a love story. Yeah, there's a love story here. Although it's definitely, it's tangential to the main conflict, which is, the good versus evil struggle here. But so early in the story, Curly Bill kills the sheriff,
right?
Was it the marshal? I think yes, the marshal.
He's a town. There's this town marshal, and then the county.
Well, I think
marshal.
it's the town sheriff and the county marshal, right? I think
I'm not sure, but Fred White is the town guy, and what's his Bannon?
Johnny Behan, who's in
Behan, yeah,
in the
Behan.
pocket of the Cowboys. He's the local sheriff. But anyway, he shoots the guy right on the street. He's so smoked up on opium. He shoots the guy. There's always people around. Shoots him, kills him, and Wyatt immediately, does he bonk him over the head to knock him out? I forget, but he takes him into custody, even though he's not a lawman yet, or no more, and he holds off some of the locals who want to lynch Curly Bill for killing Fred White in cold blood, and two, some of the Cowboys who want to free him.
Right, Ike comes over and says, "Turn him loose."
Yeah, including Ike Clanton, big mouth, blowhard, and he said, "No, he's gonna stand trial." So you get again. I don't think Wyatt's even armed. He holds off both factions.
Oh no, Wyatt was armed, because remember now, when Ike comes.
Oh yeah, that's right. He pulls the gun. He puts the gun to Ike's forehead. That's right. And so Curly Bill stands trial, but he's acquitted because there's no witnesses against him, even though there were like 50 people in the street, when it happened, because no one wants to testify. Everybody's too scared to testify against the Cowboys. So you have this animosity building,
the tension
between the two. Yeah, this tension's building between the two factions. We see the Cowboys victimizing. They're thugs and murderers. Not just killing Fred White, but victimizing the townspeople who are honest tradesmen and women. And Virgil Earp, who has a real sense of justice. Yeah, he's really
even more so than Wyatt.
Yeah, oh yeah, more than anybody in the universe of this story, and beautifully portrayed by Sam Elliott, who's great in these kinds of roles. And he's got the drooping mustache; he's just perfect. He's got the look, everything about him. Virgil's a real morally upright guy. He can't tolerate the injustice. He says, he's gonna sign up as a lawman, and put an end to the injustice, the victimization of the innocent at the hands of the Cowboys. And why is moaning, oh God, haven't we had enough of that? We came here to make money, and Virgil says they're victimizing all these innocent people. Wyatt, how could you stand it? And Wyatt says to him at one point, he said, Virgil, have you ever killed a man?
Morgan. He asked Morgan. Because Morgan's the youngest brother. And Wyatt says, Morgan, talk some sense into him. And then Morgan says, well, I backed him. He's my brother.
Yeah, and they're both lawmen by this time, right? They're both signed up.
Yeah, they both signed up.
They pulled the jack and they got the badge. And I think Wyatt's speaking to both of them. He said, have you ever killed a man? And no, and Wyatt says something like, well, you don't want to.
He said, all those times in those cow towns, I only got mixed up in one gunfight, just one. But a man lost his life and I took it, and you don't want to know how that feels.
I'm glad you remember every freaking line in this movie. It's great.
I actually paraphrased. The line's longer, but I figured we could just summarize it.
Cool. But yeah, you can imagine you're a good man. Even if the guy you killed is a real bad guy, and intellectually and morally he deserved it. At the emotional level, you're a good person. You still took a human life. Right. It's not something that, I know all these heroes.
You ever watch the show The Blacklist?
No.
Used to be on. Well, in the movie, James Spader, he plays the lead character, and he's a vicious, I don't know if gangster is the right word, but he's a murderer. He's a high crime guy, deadly murderer. And it's like he's kind of an anti-hero. You don't know, is he a good guy, bad guy kind of thing. But the FBI agent that he's working for, that we don't know if it's his daughter or not, she's talking about her husband, and she says to Red, the James Spader character, that her husband isn't like Red. He can't just kill somebody and be the same afterwards. And Red laughs and he says, Elizabeth, nobody can kill somebody and be the same afterwards. And that's what when I first saw that on The Blacklist, it reminded me of the Wyatt Earp conversation when he says, you don't want to know what it feels like.
Yeah, it's absolutely. I mean, I've never killed anybody, thank God, and I don't intend to. Well, I got a shotgun in case anybody breaks into my house in the middle of the night. But
why, Andy Bernstein? Where are you going with that shotgun?
But I've known all these real life war heroes don't forget, when I was a kid, 1960s, World War II vets were not only still alive, they were relatively young. They were in their 40s. And they don't, combat vets typically will not speak about their experiences to only the people who are combat vets who know what it's like. Once in a while, though, you get some feedback from one of these guys, and it's just horrible. They knew it was the right thing to do. The Marine position was going to be overwhelmed by Japanese attack, and they're blasting away, killing all these guys. But morally, it's the right thing to do. But it's in here. You just took but bayonets, all that's horrible stuff. You kill somebody with a bayonet. And, it's the right thing to do in the moment, but emotionally, it's just painful. It's just these guys have nightmares. God knows how many combat vets commit suicide. There's a very high percentage of them because they've been through this kind of hell. Part of which is having to kill all these guys. Anyhow, so why you understand why it's pointed? Because you don't want to have to. We're gonna end up, if we're lawmen, we're gonna have to go against these bastards. There's gonna be a shootout. People are gonna get killed. Hopefully, we don't get killed. But we kill these guys. It sucks, guys. I don't want to get into it. So you understand where Wyatt's coming from, but we also understand where Virgil's coming from because he wants to do right. He's he's a man of upright moral character. He wants justice.
Yeah,
and so. So anyway, we have that scene, and so they become lawmen, and immediately go to gun control, which in this context, may or may not be the right thing to do, but they won't let the cowboys, anybody into town with their guns, and the cowboys immediately, test them. The Clanton brothers and the McClory brothers, they're down at the OK Corral and they're armed.
Well, you gotta back up a little bit.
Go ahead.
You got to tell the scene because the friction builds. It's still building. And there's the scene where Doc Holliday, he's playing poker with Ike. And Ike feels like he's been cheated. And he tells Doc, nobody's that damn lucky, you son of a bitch. And, Doc says, maybe poker's just not your game, Ike. Why don't we try a spelling contest? So they get into a big thing, and Ike says, I'm the one that was cheated. And, Virgil tells him, no one cheated you, Ike. You're drunk. Go home. And Ike's running his mouth to Virgil, and Virgil says, don't you threaten me, you little son of a bitch. And then, then afterwards, Ike goes to get his gun because it's hanging up on the bar. He can't carry it. He's getting ready to leave. And he smacks the bartender in the face, and he tells him, don't you ever talk to a cowboy like that. And he says, and you tell Virgil and Doc Holliday, Wyatt Earp, if I see them on the street. But meanwhile, Virgil's right behind him. And Virgil conks him over the head, takes him into jail, and they lock him up. And that's when the cowboys, they come to get him out. And here's where the tension really rises because they let him out, and the cowboys come and say, you go ahead and give Ike his gun back. And Virgil says no when he sobers up, and then they tell him, "You got a fight coming." They tell the Earp, "You got a fight coming." So now, now you can get to the next.
I'm glad you brought that in, right? Because that sets up the fight. They're at the OK Corral, the four of them, the two Clanton brothers, the two McClory brothers, and they're armed. And Virgil's going to go down there and disarm them. And Wyatt says, "Oh God, you know what's going to happen, Verge? We're going to get in a shootout. We're going to have to kill these guys, or they'll kill us. It's
Importantly, by then, I just remembered Wyatt joined them and became a
and he's trying to avoid a shootout here. He's trying to avoid the bloodshed. He said they're drunk. Let them sober up. They'll go home. So let it go." And Virgil says, "God damn it, Wyatt! They're breaking the law." So Wyatt realizes he is not going to be able to talk Virgil out of this. So it's either let his brothers go down and shoot it out with these bastards without him, or join them and help protect his brothers and enforce the law on the bad guys. So they're heading down towards the OK Corral. And
Doc shows up. Doc shows up. And Wyatt tells Doc, you don't have to come with us. This doesn't include you.
It's not your fight. This is not your fight.
Yeah. And Doc says, that is a hell of a thing for you to say to me. And then Wyatt gives him the shotgun and says they'll be less likely to get jumpy if Doc's on the the business end of a street howitzer. so now they head down. This is the iconic poster, right?
Justice is coming.
So they get down there and they arrive.
Setting the scene, setting the scene, and the director, I forget his name, milks this scene for all the tension because the two factions just face off. They got their hands, they're bent over, got their hands near their gun and just staring. It's a stare down contest, and don't know what's going to happen until Doc Holliday looks at one of these guys. Was it Ike? Who's he looking at?
Ike didn't have a gun. Ike was scared to death. Ike was me in this situation. Whoa. He's like washing up. He said, I'm unarmed. I'm unarmed. But yeah, Doc is staring at Billy. I can't remember.
Billy Clanton.
Yeah. And everybody's a nervous wreck, right? In this scene, except Doc. Doc is just, like you said, cool as can be.
And he winks. He winks at one of the bad guys, and that said, it's like he's mocking him, and that sets the bad guys off, and they go for their guns. And was it Wyatt or one of them says shit? I think.
Oh hell! I think he says hell.
And everybody pulls their guns and they start blasting away, And in the event, the Billy Clanton's killed, the two McLaurin brothers are killed, two of the Earp brothers, Virgil and Morgan, are wounded, and that Ike runs away. Gets a gun and starts blasting indiscriminately out the window. But he's established as a coward. But one of the bad guys is shut up, but thinks that Doc is out of ammo, and he's pointing the gun at Doc. He says, "I got you, you bastard," or something.
Holiday, I got you now. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Doc very, very calm. Well, you're a daisy if you do. And he pulls out. He has I don't know, with his left hand, and bam. And one of the Earp brothers also shoots this guy. So they shoot him simultaneously and finish him off. But the three of them are dead. Three bad guys are dead. And Earp brothers two of the Earp brothers are wounded, but not critically. And it's a decisive victory for the good guys here. But conflict's just getting started, right? Because and here the cowboys, who are supposed to be so tough, they engage in real cowardly.
Yeah.
In real coward. First of all, they shoot up the home with the Earp brothers' wives, which is too much for one of the cowboys, McMaster's, who leaves them at that point, says to the Earp brothers, he said, shooting up your women. That's way beyond the line,
Right. He's going to join them.
He's going to join them against
battle.
Yeah. But and he does. But they shoot Morgan and Wyatt. They shoot Morgan and the Virgil. They ambush him. They shoot him in the back.
They shoot Morgan in the back, and they, Virgil loses the use of his arm.
It's amputated. Yeah, they have to amputate his arm. Morgan dies. Virgil's arm is amputated, and it's just and the scene is dramatic. The scene's because there's a thunderstorm blasting, the thunder and lightning.
Oh no, Andy, we forgot one of the scenes.
Well, go ahead.
Forgot we when they're walking down the street in Johnny Ringo, Doc's getting a shave. And Johnny Ringo's drunk, and he comes up and says, "You vultures, goddamn vultures." And Wyatt says, "I'm not going to fight you, Ringo. There's no money in it." And Ringo says, "Don't any of you got the guts to play for blood?" And that's when Doc gives the famous line, "I'm your Huckleberry. That's just my game."
Blood,
but the other cowboys knew that Johnny was going to get taken out. This happens before they end up shooting all the, the killing Morgan and shooting Virgil. This is before that.
Yeah, because Johnny says, "I want them spitting blood."
Yeah,
as paybacks for killing
at the OK Corral.
The brothers. Yeah,
but again, Doc was cool as hell. He just says, "Say when."
Yeah, he's got a gun in his hand behind his back.
Yeah,
he's not just one in the holster. He's got one behind his back, and he's gonna blow Johnny Ringo away. At this point. But you're right. Curly Bill and the other cowboys pull Ringo off. Yeah, they know. They know.
So now we've got the
FAFO, right? Regarding
always, yes.
Yeah.
But yeah. So, but when these murderers, when they kill Morgan, they shoot Virgil, they shoot up the women's, the house where the women are in. It's a very what's the word I'm looking for here? There's thunder, there's lightning. It's dramatic. Really sets the mood.
It's very dramatic. It's very well done by the director, whose unfortunate name I forget. But at this point, Wyatt, he really fakes he really fools I mean, he pulls a real fast one on the bad guys, because he makes like they're broken in spirit and they're gonna run, and they're on the buckboard, Wyatt and and Virgil and the women, and they pass Curly Bill and Ringo in the street, and Wyatt says to Curly Bill, I just want you to know it's over. And Curly Bill goes, bye, and Johnny says, smells like somebody died. These guys are real bastards,
Yeah.
And so Wyatt drives the buckboard off, like they're whipped dogs, like they're spiritually broken, and there's no more fighting them. They get on the train, and anyway, they get on the train. But before that, as Wyatt rides off in the buckboard, Curly Bill says to his guys, Stillwell and Ike Clant, he says to Stillwell, take Ike and finish it. So they got to ambush them at the train station and kill Wyatt and everything. So that night, the train's in the station. The women are on board. Virgil's with the women. He's got one arm, but he becomes a lawman in California for years afterwards anyway. So he's there to protect the ladies. And Stillwell and Clanton, come up to the train. Maddie says to Wyatt's common law wife, where's Wyatt? And Wyatt says, right behind you, Stillwell. And Stillwell turns around, and Wyatt's got the shotgun and goes, kaboosh. And he blows Stillwell away. And Clanton,
here comes Ike the coward, right?
Yeah, he's on his knees. He's pleading, don't shoot me, Wyatt, please, don't shoot me. And Wyatt doesn't shoot him. He just takes a spur on his boot and carves up his cheek and says, you got a message to deliver, Clanton. He says, you tell them, if I see anybody, I'm going to kill every cowboy you see. If I see anybody with a red sash, I'm going to kill them, not arrest them, not bring them to trial. No, I'm going to shoot them down like dogs. What does he say? I'm coming, and all hell. Tell him.
And he shows he's now a U.S. Marshal.
All hell's coming with me.
Yeah. And he's actually a U.S. Marshal. He shows him the badge. He says, you see that? It says U.S. Marshal. And he tells him, yeah, I'm coming and hell's coming with me. And this is where the movie really takes off.
Yeah. Yeah. So, there's some scenes where this in real life was known, as Wyatt Earp's vengeance ride, or his vendetta ride. Wyatt, Doc, McMaster's the reformed cowboy, and two other allies, Turkey Creek, Vermillion, something I forget their name.
Turkey Creek, Jas Johnson, and Texas Jack Vermil.
Yeah, some real hard rocks. Five of them, and there's some scenes where they're blowing away. They find cowboys in brothels and bars or wherever. They just shoot them. They don't arrest them. They don't. You're not gonna bring them to justice. They just gun them down. And finally, the shootout in the river with Curly Bill. What an epic scene, So I don't know how many cowboys there are, but there's a lot.
They're like cockroaches.
You're right. There's dozens of them. And so there's one scene where they have Wyatt and his guys, in a crossfire by, and Curly Bill's across this stream from them, and they're blasting away at him. And Wyatt goes, what I forget what he's so shit or something. He says, gets up and he marches out into the thick of the gunfire, into the stream, and he's blasted away. And Curly Bill, he's mine. And he comes out into the river, and it's a big mistake, and Wyatt's got the shotgun. He, bam! And he gives them both barrels. So and then again, bam! And he kills, Curly Bill. And I'm in the audience the first time. Yeah, you killed Curly Bill. And then he pulls out his pistol. He jerks out his pistols, and he's shooting away. And Doc and the other guys follow him into the stream. And there's this big shootout, and they kill a bunch of cowboys. And it's just this very heroic, amazingly heroic scene. And afterwards, they've killed a bunch of the cowboys, and they've driven the rest of them off. And one of the other good guys says to Doc, "Where's Wyatt?" And Doc says something. He's down by the stream, walking on water. The guy says, he says, I understand if they were my brothers, I'd want revenge too. And Doc has an immortal line. He says, it's not revenge he's looking for. It's a reckoning. A final accounting for the evil guys. Like they're going to finally get their full and just deserts. Final accounting, moral accounting for the bad guys. And, what are you in it for, Holiday? And Doc says, Wyatt Earp's my friend. And the other guy says, hell, I got lots of friends. Doc says, I don't. And you could see,
just powerful, but it just makes brings the goosebumps out of you.
Yeah, because you can see the attachment here. Doc's not a blood brother to Wyatt, but he's a spiritual brother, and he's the only. You get the impression he's the only person in the entire universe of the movie that Doc loves. That this is his brother, and he loves him like a brother, and so it's a very powerful scene. And a little while later, the scenes just keep coming, Michael. The hits just keep coming in this movie. Doc's sick because he's dying of tuberculosis, although he feigns being sicker than he really is.
Yeah, they got him up in the house. They find the rancher, Charlton Heston.
Yeah, the Henry Hooker.
Henry Hooker's ranch.
Yeah,
he lets him stay there.
Interesting, you're right. Charlton Heston plays Henry Hooker. It's a cameo. It's a small role, but he's a legendary actor. And Robert Mitchum narrated. They had some legendary guys, involved in this story. So Doc feigns being sicker than he actually is. Johnny Ringo, who's now the head of the Cowboys because Curly Bill is dead, challenges Wyatt to a gunfight to settle this.
Yeah, well, they drag McMasters. They kill McMasters, the Cowboys, and they drag him up, to the ranch.
Yeah,
where Wyatt's staying.
And knowing, and it's an adroit move by Johnny Ringo, because Wyatt knows he can't outshoot Ringo, but Ringo kills McMasters and drags his body like that to get Wyatt Earp so incensed that he's so angry that he'll agree to a gunfight with Johnny Ringo. He's like, tell him I'll be there, over by the oak tree or wherever it is. And so Wyatt's going to leave and to go meet him, face to face. But Doc Holliday has fooled everybody.
Well, you got to tell them about the conversation they have. This is an epic discussion.
Oh yeah, that's right. The Doc's presumably dying. As far as Wyatt knows, he's dying.
Yeah. And Wyatt asks him. He says, "I can't beat him, can I?" And Doc told him,
says, "No." And,
well, what did he say to him, Andy? When Wyatt asked him, "What makes a man like Ringo tick?"
Yeah, you're right. And Doc says he wants revenge, and Wyatt says, "Revenge for what?" And Doc says, "For being born." And again, there's this powerful, for somebody who studied objectivism, you realize that the people who made the movie may not even realize the full meaning of this themselves. But because a lot of artwork is done from the subconscious. But what they're actually saying is, and at some subconscious level, I suspect they all knew it, but maybe couldn't put it into words consciously, that this is nihilism. That this is the desire to destroy for its own sake, to kill, to destroy, to tear down. There's no motive to build anything up or construct. The motive is to destruct, to kill, to tear down, to destroy. And there's there's a hole inside him, Doc says, that all the killing in the world can't fill. But that's what he's trying to do. And this is a very vivid, practical a dramatization of what nihilism looks like, the urge to destroy as it ends in itself, destruction for its own sake, just to kill. And he's right. And so Doc sneaks out before Wyatt can get there, and it's a great scene. Ringo's waiting in the trees, and you see a shadowy figure coming through the trees, and Ringo thinks it's Wyatt. I didn't think you had it in you, Ringo says. And, and then Doc, he heard Doc's voice. He says, what does he say? Why Johnny Ringo? He says,
he tells him, he says, "I'm your Huckleberry."
I'm your Huckleberry.
And then he says, "Why, Johnny Ringo, you look like someone just walked over your grave."
Yeah, that's the way he says it too. Yeah. Yeah. And my fight's not with you, Holiday. And I beg to differ, sir. We started a contest that we never got to finish. Play for blood, right? He's smoking the cigarettes as cool as can be, coughing, smoking. It's play for blood, remember? And Johnny, I was just fooling around. I didn't mean it, I was just fooling around. Johnny Ringo says, and Doc says, I wasn't. you know.
Then he says, then this time I'm legal, because he had asked Wyatt if he could wear the badge,
Yeah,
the federal marshal's badge. He tricked him into letting him see it. He says, now I'm legal. I can kill you legally.
yeah.
He tells him.
And so Johnny Ringo's scared, but he's Johnny Ringo. He's got to fight, you know. And so, all right, Lunger, let's do it, you know. And they pace around for a few seconds, you know, say when, right?
Yeah.
Doc says, and finally, you know, they go for their guns, and Doc kills him. And when Johnny Ringo's he's dying, but he's still alive. He's staggering, and Doc's mocking him. Why, Johnny Ringo? You're no Daisy. You're no Daisy at all, you know. And Johnny falls on his face and dies. Again, I'm gonna stand up in the movie theater and applaud. Got that bastard, Doc, you know. And after that, you see, you know, the Cowboys again. There's a series of shots with.
Well, Doc puts the badge on Johnny Ringo.
Yeah, that's right.
And Wyatt shows up.
Yeah.
And he's like, what the hell happened? And Doc says, well, I wasn't quite as sick as I made out. And then Wyatt sees the badge on Johnny Ringo, and he has a quizzical look. And Doc says, my hypocrisy only goes so far.
Yeah, it's some great lines. And you see these scenes where they kill off, you know, they're chasing off the rest of the Cowboys. And, you know, and then you get to the end, and you know, they destroy the Cowboy gang.
Yeah, the whole circuit's done.
Again, Ike Clanton flees.
And he throws the sash off so they don't kill him.
Yeah, Coward, you know, to the end. And although they say in the voiceover at the end that Robert Mitchum speaking that he got killed a few years later in a holdup somewhere. But in the end, Doc's in the sanitarium in Colorado, and now he's really dying. And Wyatt Earp is there and gives him this dime novel. Was it My Friend Doc Holliday, or you know something like that? And Doc pleads with him to go and let Doc die. And he says, go find that spirited actress, you know, and you meaning Josie Marcus. Go find that spirited actress and make her your own, and you'll live a different kind of life. And Doc dies. Wyatt, you know, he says to Doc before he leaves, he says, "Thank you, you know, Doc, for always being there." And you know, and he leaves in accordance with Doc's last wishes. And you know, Doc dies peacefully in his bed from consumption. And Wyatt goes and finds Josie, and he said, "I don't have any money. You know, I don't know. You know how, you know." He proposes to her, and I don't have any money. And I don't know how I'm going to support you. And she says, "Don't worry, Wyatt. My family's rich." You know, which in real life I don't think was true, because I did a little research on that. But that's not the point. This is a story. But anyway, my family's rich. But anyhow, and the movie ends. This is 1879, early 1880s something, and they're together for 4. I don't know if they ever legally married, but
they said they were together for 40 years afterwards.
Yeah, 47 years I think it was, until he finally died in 1929. I think in Hollywood. There's a photograph I saw where the young John Wayne, who's not a star yet, meets, you know, the elderly Wyatt Earp. But at Wyatt Earp's funeral, he's in his early 80s, I think, when he dies. Tom Mix and who was his name? William Hart were the two big the Western movie stars back then, and they're pallbearers at Wyatt Earp's funeral. But yeah, but he and Josie Marcus were together, I think, for 47 years until his death in L.A. And he was around Hollywood. These Western movie stars knew Wyatt Earp, and they drew on his experiences and his knowledge in portraying various Western heroes.
Now, moment of truth. So we always do this at the end. How do you place this movie within Ayn Rand's theory of art?
Well, a lot of heroes, you know. So I mean, that's a good start. But in the Romantic Manifesto, Ayn Rand's talking about literature, you know, and that romanticism is the school of volition, especially in literature, where you can dramatize philosophic principles more readily than in the other arts. I think You can tell story, and you really tell a story. Whereas a painting is like a snapshot of a story, but in literature you can tell the whole story. And that Romanticism is the volitional school of art that depicts human beings as making choices and selecting values, choosing their own values. And you see, all through this movie, Wyatt does not want to get involved in the gunplay. He doesn't want to have to shoot anybody and everything. So he's got this brutal choice. The movie shows he's got to either let his brothers go fight these guys by themselves, stay true to his desire to be a man of peace, not of violence. But then his brothers have to go shoot it out with the bad guys themselves and maybe get killed, or give up his decision to be a man of peace and join his brothers, and shoot it out with the bad guys. Brutal choice, and he makes. He makes the choice to join his brothers. He can't. He won't let them. It reminds me of Shane. Which great novel by Jack Schaefer. Which we should discuss the movie or the novel or both at some point on the show. But he makes that choice over and over again. Doc, he said, this isn't your fight. This isn't your fight, Doc. And Doc, what was like? How could you say such a thing to me or something? He said, like, what do you think? I'm going to let you guys go fight the bad guys by yourself without me and maybe get killed? Doc could easily. He's a gambler. Nobody's begging him to join this fight. They're telling on the contrary. They're telling him not to. But Doc, feeling a sense of loyalty to Wyatt, makes the choice. I'm going to go. If I get killed, I'll get killed. But I'm going to go shoot it out with the bad guys with you because you're my brother. I don't know if Doc cares as much about law and order, as Virgil.
No, he doesn't give a damn.
I don't think he gives a damn about that. What he does care about is he loves Wyatt Earp, and he's gonna fight to protect the brother he loves.
Now that you say this, it reminds me of the scene in Les Mis where there was the ABC gang, and they were describing each of the members of the gang. It might even have been A, B, C, D. I don't exactly remember, but
Abassé in French. Enjolras and those guys.
Okay, those guys
of Abassé.
And the head of it, I believe his name was Enjolras, or it's something along these lines.
Enjolras.
Yeah. Okay. So, and they were going through all the guys, and they all had their reasons for this, revolution. And they got to one guy, and they said, he really didn't care about he didn't believe in the movement. He believed in
Enjolras.
Yeah. And that is kind of what the Doc Holliday character is. He doesn't give a damn about all that other stuff, right? He cares about Wyatt Earp.
Right. It's his brother.
Yeah, that's what he believes in. What a freaking movie, right? What a great movie.
Yeah. Yeah. And even with the bad guys. I mean, Ike Clanton's this coward, and he's exposed as a coward, and yet he keeps coming back for more. At some point he might have thought to himself, hey, I'm going to get shot. How many times can I beg for mercy and get it? I'm going to get shot. I got to get out of here, and he makes the choice to keep coming back when he should have got on his horse and ran, Even at the end, when Wyatt says, you go give these guys a warning, Clanton could have thought, wait a minute. I'm not going to go tell Curly Bill. I'm going to get the hell out of here.
Yeah. He went and he's right back up. Yeah.
He does it. Yeah. He does. He keeps coming back for more, and even though the next time somebody pulls a gun on him, he's going to whimper for mercy again.
Every single time.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. So this was a great movie. This is a great show. Go ahead. You want to finish? Go ahead. I thought you were done, but go ahead.
No. Yeah. I just wanted to say, I've seen this movie like 5 or 6 times, not 100 times, but a good 5 or 6 times. It is a great Western. I think it's up there. I would say I love the Western genre. I grew up with these great John Wayne movies, and I would put it up there with Duke at his best. And Duke did some. John Wayne did these great Rio Bravo, The Searches, Fort Apache. These great movies with Howard Hawks directing with John Ford. I think this movie is just as good. It's a great Western. I give it 2 thumbs. Anybody loves heroes? This movie's for you. And there's a love story. It's secondary, but Wyatt and Josie Marcus genuinely love each other. But the real love story isn't even the romantic one. It's the one we've been discussing, the brother love. The love Wyatt has for Virgil and Morgan, the love Doc has for Wyatt, There's
Yeah.
real. There's the real love story in family. Family.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
All right. So now you get a chance. Where can they find you, and bring your books out?
All right. Thank you. Yeah. My website is andrewbernstein.net. I have some of my books. Here's an oldie but a goodie, The Capitalist Manifesto, 2005, which your buddy Mark Pellegrino always.
Yeah, he touts it very, very highly. Yes.
Yeah, Mark, the one of the two founders with Joe Sanders of the American Capitalist Party, has told me many times he loves The Capitalist Manifesto, or CAP,
Yes,
as I like to call it. Here's my book on heroes. As a bona fide hero worshiper, I had to write a book on heroes. Heroes, legends, champions, why heroism matters. And there are books on heroes where some of them are very good, but where they mostly like they're stories of heroes, which is great. But this book has stories of heroes also, but this book's more philosophical because I wanted to define what a hero is, not the dictionary definition, but a philosophic definition, and induced it from a whole bunch of different kinds of people who do these life promoting things, and everyday good guys and killers, and to induce, extract from real life examples by comparison and contrast what it means to be a hero, and then define what a hero is. Here's my favorite book, Reckoning. This is the best thing I've ever written. I've long feared that the United States was going to get dragged into race war, and that's what this is. A novel. This is fiction. Reckoning, race war comes to America. Warning, this is not for everybody. It's about race war, and so it's dark, it's violent, it's brutal. But if it's anybody who gets through it and loves literature, you're going to see this is a great novel.
I have it in my basement, by the way. And I still have to read it. I'm catching up. I'm racing through a lot of the stuff I've had in my queue, and it's coming up soon.
Well, you have a strong stomach for bad guys and everything. So I think you'll get through it, and you'll be able to see what a great story it is, and how the theme of colorblind individualism versus racism in different forms is dramatized in the action. This is the best thing I've ever written, fiction or nonfiction. But one last book. Here's my book on education. Why Johnny, Rudolph Flesch in 1955 published his famous book, Why Johnny Can't Read, arguing for phonics and the teaching of reading. Well, my book in 2022 is Why Johnny Still Can't Read, or write or understand math, and what we could do about it. And the first half of the book shows how we got into this mess, and that the leftists who control the school system did it deliberately. And the second half of the book is how we can vastly improve education in this country. So andrewbernstein.net. Oh, wait a minute. Tony Just. It's Tony Just.
Yeah, don't forget Tony Just and Tris Power.
Yeah. Red Meat Village, Tony Just saga. Website here is tonyjust.net if you love hard-boiled detective fiction. I know you've read this book, Michael, and Red Meat Village, Tony Just saga. So andrewbernstein.net for Andrew Bernstein books, tonyjust.net for Tris Powers books, and they'll keep people busy.
Keep you nice and busy. Andy, thanks for coming on again. We got to do another one soon.
Yeah, definitely. We decided we're going to do Dead Poet Society, right?
I thought we did, but also $1 Million Baby. I thought we were going to do also. Was I wrong about that?
Two grim stories, but two great movies. Either one, I'm good.
I prefer $1 Million Baby first because my girlfriend hasn't seen that, whereas we just watched Dead Poet Society. So to have her watch it again, it might be an issue. Okay,
$1 Million Baby. By the way, you Red Meat Village. You enjoyed reading this book, right?
Yes, I sure did. Yes.
Great, thank you. All right, so $1 Million Baby is next, and in the next few weeks, and more movies for our we're the Siskel and Ebert of the objectivist community, right?
Yes. All right, for now, this is the Rational Egoist signing out. I'm Michael Liebowitz. Until next time.